I want to start today by talking about the government shutdown and where we are at with an impending 23 days before the government runs out of money once again. I can't believe we're having this discussion. But yes, in fact, the government is set to run out of money once again at the end of this month. Now, we've had two big problems here. No stimulus, and that means we might have another government shutdown. So two big problems. And they're all kind of like, it's like an incestuous relationship right now, the government stimulus and the government shutdown. Now, the way that this shutdown could be avoided is that if the government is able to pass these appropriations bills, and there's a few of them, there's like 5 or 6 different appropriations bills basically to keep the government running through the end of the year. Now, we heard a lot of gum flapping from Vice President Mike Pence last week. He was out there spinning some propaganda on the White House lawn, telling us how, and you can just see it in his face, by the way. He stiffens up his back, and you know he's about to spew some propaganda. You can see that in all politicians, right? But in Pence, he said, look, because of our team, we were able to work out our negotiating team with the Democrats. We got it. We're going to have no government shutdown because our negotiations team did a great job. And guess what? Now we'll be able to focus on the stimulus package. Here was Mike Pence just the other day. If you didn't get a chance to listen to him, here was this propaganda.
Made available. The agreement reached this week by the Treasury Secretary and our negotiations team to have a continuing resolution to continue to fund the government when the fiscal year runs out at the end of this month means that now we can focus just on another relief bill. And we're continuing to do that in good faith. Look, nobody wants to give direct payments to American families more than President Donald Trump again. I mean,
right. Nobody. He gives us a little chuckle. Nobody out there wants to give direct stimulus payments more than President Trump. Right. Okay. That's why there's a HEROES Act that was passed back in May. Yes, a big liberal program filled with a lot of things that we don't like, but filled with a lot of things that we do like. And on top of that, and that's sitting on the Senate's desk, and you have the Federal Reserve, you have Jerome Powell, and you have other members of the Fed board saying you need to pass stimulus 2 months ago. And Republicans wanted to take a pause. Mitch McConnell wanted a pause. We're just going to pause. Pause we should have is the only pausing we should have is this guy. Right, Grover? 4 pause. That's it. We should not need to be pausing right now to see how well our stimulus is doing for the American people. And now you want to complain that we're up against an election and a government shutdown, and that's why we're now voting on a stimulus? Garbage. So you had this opportunity to pass this stimulus months ago, and you could have had broader base support from the Democrats than you probably do now because you want to pass this skinny package. Anyway, Stephen Mnuchin was on Brett Baer's show talking about this Sunday on Fox News about where we are right now with this government shutdown issue. And then we'll get to his thoughts on the stimulus in just a second. But can we keep the government open? What are we going to do to keep government employees and government offices open? Remember, these are the very government offices that, cut stimulus checks, process IRS tax returns, all of these things that are vital to the American people. Do you remember when we had to furlough them the last time and send them home? And how many of you were waiting on your stimulus payments? How many of you were waiting on your tax returns? Yeah, here we go again. So here's Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin on where we are with this government shutdown possibility in 23 days.
What exactly did you agree with the Speaker on government funding?
Well, the good news, Brett, is the Speaker and I have agreed. We both don't want to see a government shutdown. So we've agreed that we are going to do a clean CR. We'll do this separately from the CARES Act negotiations. We're having the appropriations staff, the 4 corners, meet and go through some specific details on it. But the good news is we've agreed on a clean CR, and I hope by the end of the week we can begin moving forward with that, because that's important to the American people.
CR, continuing resolution. How long would that government funding extension last? Through Election Day? Some other timeline?
We haven't agreed on the specific details, but my expectation it would be through the beginning of December. That's what we did this year. We had one through December. We then needed another one into the beginning of next year, and then we had final appropriation. So for now, the most important thing is to make sure at the end of the month we don't shut down the government and we get something past the election.
All right, so past the election Good, because if we have to go through another government shutdown a few days before the election, there's no way, first of all, that President Trump is going to want that. And I'm sure he's probably told Mnuchin, get something passed so that I don't have to deal with this before the election. But then you're going to kick the can down to December. And we have to keep doing these little piddly government continuing resolutions to keep the government funded, to keep the government open. So right now, this government shutdown and these appropriations bills are being used and could potentially be used as leverage to get some sort of broader-based stimulus package through. But God knows we probably won't see any of that, because looks like the Republicans in the next day or two are likely to roll out their skinny stimulus package. Now, I'm going to continue to call it a skinny bill. I know Chuck Schumer wants to call it an emaciated bill, and Nancy Pelosi wants to call it an anorexic bill, what Republicans are putting forward. My question is, where the heck is Donald Trump's "we're going to be bigger and better than what the Democrats want" bill? Instead, you're going to roll out this little skinny bill. I want you to listen now to what Treasury Secretary Mnuchin says about where they think they're going to go with stimulus negotiations and what sort of package will actually come out of Washington. Listen.
We're back to where we were, and we want to help small businesses. We want to help businesses that are particularly impacted by this, and we'll continue to work on proposed new legislation.
So what's the sticking point? Does Speaker Pelosi want this, do you believe?
Well, I think, in my discussions with the Speaker, where we're really stuck is both on certain policy issues, but more importantly on the top line. The Speaker has refused to sit down and negotiate unless we agree to something like a $2.5 trillion deal in advance. And, Brett, as you know, we put $3 trillion into the economy when the economy was completely shut down. We've now reopened the economy. Well, let's do a more targeted bill now. If we need to do more in 30 days, we'll continue to do more. But let's not hold up the American workers and American businesses that need more support.
So on the logistics, will Senate Republicans move a so-called skinny bill next week?
I'd like to call it a more targeted bill, not a skinny bill. But yes, our expectation is we'll move forward with that next week.
Oh, a more targeted bill. Okay, we don't want to call it skinny. It's going to be about $500 billion. It's going to be way less than what we need. Well, it will not have direct stimulus payments. I'd like to call it more targeted. Yeah, I call it a load of crap. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Who else do you need to listen to? The American people are hurting. All of the data. I know you guys in Washington want to tie your little, your little bill around the idea of these jobs numbers the other day. 30 million people are still out of work. 30 million. So your little jobs, your jobs number on Friday, lifted up some spirits again. You think that is the end all be all. You look at Wall Street, you see that Wall Street's doing well. And you see that the housing sector is doing well, but you're not paying attention to the real numbers. And that's why we do this show, because we're paying attention to the real numbers on this show. The American people that are really hurting, the lower income kids that don't have internet access at home, and they're having to go to a Taco Bell to use their internet to do remote learning for school. Yeah, that happened last week. The Taco Bell said, "Come on in, kids. Come on inside. You don't have to sit in the parking lot." I mean, this is what we're doing? And so you want a targeted bill, a smaller bill? He sort of chuckles, when he asks them about the so-called skinny bill. Well, I don't like to call it skinny. I want to call it targeted. Oh, okay, great. So targeted would get money to the people that need it the most right now, and those people don't have stimulus checks. Those people need those $1,200. Those people don't have the unemployment benefits, but you're going to be just targeting the businesses again. That's what your focus is. Once again, it's the businesses, and the little guy gets screwed. So House Democrats, Senate Republicans, of course, failed to reach a deal on a stimulus package now for 2 months. The blame goes both ways. Yes, the House Democrats passed their HEROES Act. I'm happy to spread blame all over the place on this, but it's kind of hard. Someone said to me the other day, "Why aren't you blaming Democrats on this?" And I'm not a Democrat. I am not a Democrat. Okay, I think the Democratic Party and I think the Republican Party, they're both corrupt. And I lean way in the other direction on this. I totally believe that they're both bought and sold by Wall Street. But I will come to the Democrats' defense in this. They passed a HEROES Act. $3.3 trillion back in May because of the need for this. Yes, there's a lot of liberal bloat in there. Get rid of it then. Negotiate. But they haven't touched it. So you want to blame Democrats on this? Fine. Fine. Maybe there's a failure to negotiate on it. But Nancy Pelosi's sitting there saying, hey, people are being thrown out of their homes. Where's the eviction assistance in your stimulus package, your skinny bill? Where's your landlord assistance in your skinny bill? That's all in the HEROES Act. What about frontline workers who are exhausted, who are working in the front lines at hospitals, dealing with coronavirus cases which haven't gone away? The list goes on and on. So this is in that HEROES Act. You want to blame Democrats? Fine. Blame them all. Let's blame them all. I'm telling you where I'm placing more of my blame, though. It's with Senate Leader Mitch McConnell, who's been on vacation this whole time, has shown no signs of leadership on this at all. And President Trump. If I were president of the United States, I would be using the power of the bully pulpit, the microphone, and getting up there and saying, this is enough. I'm calling Mitch McConnell back to Washington. Nancy Pelosi's coming to my office. We're not playing golf this weekend. I'm not going to be hanging out on the golf course, tweeting about, God knows what. I'm going to be working with these leaders to get a stimulus package through. My Federal Reserve keeps telling me we need to do it. So I'm going to do it. So there's been a failure of leadership at the top. Make no mistake about it. Absolute failure at the leadership level from both parties. Let's throw them all under the bus. So Senator Barrasso was on this weekend with Charles Payne, and Charles, I like Charles a lot. I think he's been painting a rosier picture here. I don't know what he's been painting a rosier picture about blacks getting back to work, Hispanics getting back to work. Great. I get you on that front. But I think he's painting too rosy a picture of what Republicans think this economy actually looks like. But listen to his question to Senator Barrasso, Republican from Wyoming, and watch how Senator Barrasso just totally avoids the question. Because I think what Charles Payne is trying to do here is say, hey, I think Republicans are to blame. They've gotten a little too excited about the economy. And so maybe they just haven't wanted to put forward an additional round of stimulus. I think it was his nice way of trying not to be too insulting to Republicans in the way that he asks this question. But what he's ultimately saying is Republicans have dropped the ball on this. Why have you not passed an additional stimulus? And listen to Senator Barrasso basically avoid the question altogether. Listen.
We've got this momentum, but I think some in Congress, particularly on the Republican side, may be taking it for granted, not realizing it was their swift action that helped us, and now's the time to add more fiscal stimulus.
Well, these are blockbuster numbers, Charles. It is part of the great American comeback. I think it's just terrific. 10 million new jobs. As you said, the experts were all wrong. They said we'd still be at 16% unemployment. But I think this is a function of the leadership of President Trump and what the Republicans have been focused on doing, but also the integrity and hard work of the American people who want to get back to work. We still have a ways to go, and a vaccine will make a big difference. For that, we have a targeted package that the Republicans want to put forward to help people get back to work. There's paycheck protection money in there for our small businesses to continue. I expect Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi to block that.
To block it. Yeah, I love this, really. So where's the HEROES Act? That's just been sitting on your desk. Did you guys block that? This huge, bigger, better stimulus? Where's that? President Trump said it's going to be bigger and better than anything the Democrats want. Where is that? So instead, you come out with this little piddly, smaller, targeted, skinny bill. And now you're saying that the Democrats are going to block that? No, here's what the Democrats fear, is that if they go along with this little skinny, piddly bill, it's just going to be a prop up for businesses once again. It's going to be a bailout for corporations. Once again, there's no direct stimulus payments in there. There's no rental assistance in there. There's nothing for school. Very little for schools and food programs and frontline workers, hazard pay, all of these additional things that Democrats wanted in their bill. So you're going to block it? No, their fear is that if we actually allow this to go through, then you won't ever allow us to get anything more, which is actually needed, direct stimulus payments, etc. Where is the president's leadership on this? If Mike Pence the other day says no one wants to spend or have direct stimulus payments more than President Trump, no one? Really? Then where is the leadership on this in the Congress? Why would President Trump not get up on the podium or talk to Mitch McConnell and say, do not think of passing a skinny stimulus bill? There's no direct stimulus checks in there. I'm not going to sign it. So if no stimulus package materializes, Mnuchin said that a few short-term bills. Thank you so much, Elijah, for becoming a new channel member. I appreciate it. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin admits that there is not enough money right now in the government through the end of September. So we've got 23 days, folks. Today is September 7th, in order to fund the government and to try to get some additional stimulus through. And at this point, they're not even back from vacation yet, is the Senate. So by the time they get back, and I mean, we could be looking at towards the end of the end of September before we see anything at all, if anything at all. Meanwhile, the longer we wait, the more money will need to be given to the pandemic, because as this rages on, we have cases rising now in 22 states, and doctors are now bracing for more because of Labor Day. We all remember what happened during Memorial Day, don't we? When you had all those parties, everyone at the beaches and everything. And so we saw that rise in cases after Memorial Day. Do you think anything's changed? Do you think Americans are saying, you know what, this time I'm not going to be an idiot. I'm not going to go to that big pool party in Lake of the Ozarks with 80 people in it without wearing masks? Has anything changed? We'll see if Labor Day if it looks any different than Memorial Day. Maybe some people have heeded that warning. But it's hard to say, especially when you have these heat waves rolling across the country and everyone wants to just get outside and get cooled down at the beach or something else. So at lakes and stuff, I just don't see it happening. Meanwhile, on the payroll tax cut, here's another big piece of the stimulus package, and I want to talk about this. Even though employers could defer those payroll taxes under President Trump's executive order, they're choosing not to. Unfortunately, President Trump's payroll deferment went into effect last week, but it turns out, and basically would give employees a break on their half of the payroll taxes for 4 months. They'd have to start paying it back basically in January. And it's just a temporary suspension of payroll taxes. But President Trump was touting it as a big relief, but it's going to come out later. And what happens to those temporary workers? And if you're a seasonal worker who will actually be out of work in January, what happens then? So that's why most employers are not even participating in this. They're not taking advantage of this, and they're telling their employees, we're not doing it. According to the data, like for instance, CEO of Engage PE, and he explained it to the Associated Press. He said, if the employee doesn't pay this money back, you're on the hook for it. The government, like the employer is. So now the employer is going to pay it? Oh, come on. Till that changes, it doesn't make any sense to give somebody a few more months of money. It doesn't make sense, he says. So that's what these employers are going to be on the hook for it if you don't pay it back. Again, if you're a seasonal worker and you're out of work and you go back to college in the fall or whatever, and how are you going to pay this back? Because you're not going to be at that job anymore. Then the employer will have to pay it back. Do you think employers are going to be shelling out that money? No way. It's a flawed system. It was a whole dog and pony show we saw just a few weeks ago when President Trump signed those executive orders. So that's that. Please smash the like button, subscribe. Don't forget, everyone, to make sure that you're subscribing to our daily newsletter at morninginvest.com. It's delivered to your inbox first thing, totally free, right to your inbox. Let me know in the comments what you think about this latest government shutdown. Will you be affected? Are you a government employee? Will you be furloughed? And what about a direct stimulus? Do you think that the Republicans' skinny stimulus bill would go far enough to taking care of you? Or do you want something bigger? Do you need a direct stimulus check? Let me know in the comments below.